Radiation is annoying, not less because you have to do things like pay a doctor a visit in order to get it fixed. The most efficient way of fixing radiation without using items is to quickly visit Novac. The starting area is over here, and Novac is over here. Just turn around and the doctor is usually over there, if not walking around nearby. There are other doctors in the game who can fix your radiation poisoning, but this is the quickest way that I have found that doesn't involve using aid items. Some people say that the New Vegas Medical Clinic is the quickest way, but you have to endure a loading screen to enter. Plus, sometimes the doctors just wandered off before you arrive. When it comes to broken bones and such, the early game location Good Spring Source is still pretty good. You have your cooking spot over there and your bed just over here. Do notice though that if you start to sleep and then you cancel out of it, your limbs are not healed. The LMB symbol is still down there. However, if you sleep through, even if it's just for an hour, it fixes your health and your crippled limbs. Food aid items work over time. Many of the same aid products will stack the durations of time they are in use. Let me explain. For example, here, this single Sunset Sarsaparilla gives you 2 health points over 25 seconds. I drink just one, and after about 25 seconds, my health bar is near halfway full. This time, I drink 4 of them at the same time, and the 2-second health regeneration goes on for 100 seconds instead of 25, which refills my health and then some. This also means that if I'm in a pitched battle and I've taken a few health aid products, my health will keep regenerating as I fight. I have sped up this footage here, but as you can see, even though I'm taking damage, my health keeps going up even through this rampage. Repair kits are mostly for unique weapons. There are NPCs you can pay to repair your stuff. There are also repair kits you can craft, find and buy. But for much of the game, you can press the repair button, and if you have similar items, you can consume them in order to repair what you currently have. Let's say I want to repair my 9mm weapons and my revolver, and I don't have a repair kit. I can just buy them here at the shop. Then, because I now have duplicates of these guns, I can use them to repair those weapons. And even though my Magnum revolver is modified, I can still repair it using a regular revolver. On the other hand, if you have a fairly unique or rare weapon, you can use a repair kit, or you can pay a visit to a repair NPC and have it fixed that way. This is Raoul, and he is more of a late game repair NPC. Taking down Cazadors by shooting one wing. Here is a Cazador very early in the game. I'm kneeling, I activated VATS just in time, and now I'm shooting at the left wing. Try your very best to cripple one wing. Then, from a kneeling position, press the jump button, and this gets you back on your feet in the most efficient manner possible so that you can run away. The creature is fast, but it is just slow enough for you to turn around and start shooting until it is dead. If you are a little more confident and you have leveled up your gun skills a little, you can try this standing up. This allows you to back off more easily so that you can shoot. Even with the 10mm handgun with no modifications, I take down this Cazador using this method, though do be aware that this flying killer may have friends nearby. Regular shotgun shells do close-up damage. There are lots of different varieties of shotgun ammo, but during the early to mid-game, the most common 3 are regular ammo, slug ammo, and buckshot ammo. And each of these relates to how far away you are when you shoot. This is regular shotgun ammo, and for this, you need to be up really close in order for it to be most effective. The regular shotgun ammo is most effective when the shots are really up close. This is slug ammo, as you can see by the SLG down there at the bottom. Slug ammo can be used much further away, and as a side note, is pretty effective against armor. For these tests, I'm using a powerful shotgun, and I have buffed up my character. Suffice it to say that Radscorpions won't go down this easily during the early parts of the game. This is buckshot, and you can use this at a middle distance away, but it doesn't do as much damage as regular shotgun shells when the enemy is near, or as much damage as slug shells when the enemy is slightly further away. So here I am shooting at a middle distance away, and despite its weaker punch, it still does a fair amount of damage. Buckshot is more of a middle distance ammo that's best suited for unarmored targets and perhaps for smaller armored targets like this Radscorpion. Getting to rifles fairly early. Once you have leveled up a few times and you are feeling confident, you can venture out and get 2 rifles fairly early in the game, which is handy if you've sunk your skill points into guns. The first rifle is in Novac. This is how you get from the starting position to the area of Novac. It's no easy task getting east from the starting position. This faction starts out neutral, so you can walk through the gates, through into this house, and then into this box. You will have to steal it and lose a little bit of karma, but the inhabitants will not turn hostile because of one little theft. The hunting rifle is a long-range weapon with a slow rate of fire. It requires 6 skill points in strength and 50 skill points in guns. It becomes a fairly okay rifle if you have all 3 modifications installed, and it's only really suitable for somebody who has maxed out their gun skill, and who as of yet hasn't found some of the later rifles and sniper rifles. Later in the game you'll find the gun runners near Freeside East, but mid-game you're more likely to find the 188 trading post, where you may find some of the modifications for the hunting rifle from the gun seller underneath the bridge. Here is the starting area, and here is where 188 trading post is located on the map. Also, this merchant here is a mid-game NPC that you can use to repair your stuff. If you yourself haven't got the strength or gun skills required to make this a usable weapon, then here is a guide on how you get a very different, but still very good rifle. The second rifle you get from the Brockflower Cave. The starting area is up here, and the Brockflower Cave is just down here. It is just south of Novac, which is up here. Because this cave is so difficult to find, I'm going to spawn in at Highway 95's Viper encampment, where I've just cleared out the enemies. Then, from here, I'm just going to head south. Keep going south, and it's that hill area over there. Get a little closer, and this here is what you're looking for. If you go up the hill, you can see the name just appear there. As you stand outside the door, just go down here and you will see some Brock flowers. Actually, if you search all around this location, there are quite a few Brock flowers that will respawn after 3 days away from here. Anyway, this rock here is hollow, so grab whatever is inside. You need to go into this cave and explore around. I'm showing you the direct route here. There are a lot of rats, and they are super dangerous because of how quick they are. If you have very little experience and very few perk points, this can still be done, but you will need to be fairly well armed because the rats are going to come at you fast. If you are using a machine gun, then kneel so that when you shoot, the rats run into your field of fire. Search around and explore, and eventually you will find this room. Just here, this is the Rat Slayer. It is pretty much the varmint rifle, but it comes pre-installed with all the possible modifications, including the extended magazine, a silencer, and a night vision scope with superior magnification. It also has a higher critical multiplier than the varmint rifle. It is also lighter and more powerful. Also, I had a hard time finding the gunrunner's shop, so if you start here from Goodsprings, over here is where the gunrunners are located. The location is currently undiscovered, so I spawn in at Freeside East Gate, then I just go down here, and it's down here and around here. They have the .308 bullets for the hunting rifle, plus sometimes down here you will find modifications for the hunting rifle. Finding the gunrunners is more of a mid-game activity, but when you do, you should also check out their inventory for the sniper rifle, which is yet another pretty decent rifle. How long does it take for stuff to respawn? Here I am at Spring Mountain Ranch State Park, and I'm going to run over and kill all of the mantis enemies and all of the big horner creatures. I am then going to go far away, rest for 3 days, and then return. After which, the things I killed and collected from should have respawned. The most common online opinion is that most things take between 3 and 5 days to respawn. But most importantly, if you re-enter an area before those 3 days have passed, then the respawn clock starts again. I'm also collecting 3 different types of plants just to prove that plants also respawn. To sleep for extended amounts of time, find a bed, and once the 24 hours is up, just choose to sleep again for another 24 hours, and so on and so on. I go to sleep in Goodsprings because it's far enough away from Spring Mountain Ranch State Park. I sleep for 3 days, and when I return, the enemies have respawned, the big horners have respawned, and so have the plants. Again, remember that you cannot simply bed down somewhere nearby and then sleep for 3 days. You need to be far enough away, and you cannot visit until the 3 days have passed. Some stuff simply doesn't respawn, and it isn't always clear what does and what doesn't. For example, here I'm killing all of the bighorners in Goodsprings. I then head over to Harper's Shack, which is suitably far away. Then, to be on the safe side, I rest for a full 5 days. When I return, the bighorner bodies have gone, but they themselves haven't respawned. Does this mean that you can now grind your way into infinite riches? Well, no, not really. The economy is pretty well balanced, and it's even a bit punishing if, like me, you've never leveled up your bartering. For example, if you grind the state park area for bighorner meat, it only sells for 2 caps per meat. If you have the survival skill, you could cook it into bighorner meats, which sell for 5 caps, but then don't forget to factor in the cost of the bullets and the weapon degradation and the time it took to kill the bighorners. Now, in reality, knowing that something respawns is of most use when you need a lot of a certain item so that you can craft something. If you know things respawn, then all you need is a location where there's a lot of the item that you need, and you can grind through and collect up as many as you want. Items you can sell. This sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but the truth is that most of the items in the game you can sell with almost little to no consequence to the overall game. This is especially true of many items in the aid and misc sections. There are some rare weapons that you probably shouldn't sell, but things like story and unique quest items cannot be sold anyway. I sell most of what I find, and I can't say that it affected my game too much. There was this one time when I needed a bunch of stuff for the quest Not Worth a Hill of Corn and Beans, but even in that case, I just visited shop after shop until I found what I needed. The best piece of advice is to remember that most enemies and plants will respawn. This means that anything they drop can be sold, the idea being that if you need whatever they drop, because perhaps you want to craft something, then you can just go back and reharvest the area after enough time has passed. How to win at Caravan. Populate your deck with 10s, 9s and 7s. When you are out and about, try to buy more 10s, 9s and 7s. Since I haven't, I need to add other cards to my deck. Adding jacks is good because they remove cards, and adding kings is good because you can put them next to other cards and it doubles their number. Now the winning scheme is very easy. Your first card in the stack should be a 7 or a 10. I now have down a 7, a 10 and a 7. Step 2, the middle card must always be a 9. At this point, I have 2 9s down. I now add a 7 to the middle deck. There is now a 10, a 9 and a 7, which equals 26. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Start with a 7 or a 10, always put a 9 in the middle, and finish with a 7 or a 10, whichever fits. Now the enemy just put a king in my perfect stack, but I have a jack, so I put the jack next to the king. This removes the king, but sadly it also removes the 10. This means that in this stack, the 9 has gone down first, so this stack is pretty useless until I can remove the 9. There on the left is another full stack, a 7, a 9 and a 10, equaling 26. I put a king in the enemy stack and he threw away his middle stack. On the outside right, I now have a perfect stack. This too has gone 7, 9 and 10, but I could have done it the other way around and done a 10, a 9 and a 7, just so long as the 9 is in the middle. I finally draw a jack to remove that troublesome 9, but it doesn't matter anyway because the enemy runs out of possibilities with which he or she could win the match, so I win by default. When you are out and about and you meet merchants, look to buy 7s, 10s, 9s, kings and jacks. If you fill your deck with these, then winning the game becomes a lot easier. Try completing challenges while grinding for experience or loot. To see what challenges are currently available, go to Data and then go up here and go to Challenges. The GRA ones stand for Gunrunner's Arsenal, which is DLC. You can see down here there's Super Mutant Massacre. During the mid-game, I like to grind in the Black Mountain, so this challenge fits me like a glove. Here is the starting area, and over here is the Black Mountain. These are not easy enemies to defeat, but there's a fair amount of them in a small area, and despite being tough, they are pretty vulnerable to rifle rounds to the head. Normally, using the VATS system makes this area a lot easier, but in this case, I use my NPC companion Victoria to distract the enemies while I blast away until they are dead. I have a maximum luck stat, so I often get several critical hits when I grind my way through the Black Mountain. You can see here, this one does take a lot of bullets to the head, but even so, rifle rounds to the head remains the best mid-game strategy for defeating super mutants. Killing your first 50 mutants gets you the Mutant Massacrer perk, level 1, as well as the Challenges experience rewards up here too. I grind the Black Mountain because they have some expensive items, and even though a lot of them are pretty heavy, my strength stat is fairly high, and my barter skill is fairly low, so it's a nice trade-off. The last ones were light machine guns, and this one over here is a heavy incinerator. One of the great things about this game is that you can just run up and find stuff. They aren't marked on your map, even after you discover them, and you don't have to search their location to find 3 crystals of Unbabu, nor flip a switch to mark this area as complete. If you miss the location, it doesn't matter. I was hunting for Vault 3 because it's surrounded by a lot of fiends. They are very weak enemies and you get good karma for killing them. Let's say if I'm just a few points away from completing something such as the Explosives Challenge, then I can just nip over to Vault 3 and kill a few fiends whilst completing the challenge. Which booklets should you read right away? Here is a collection of books that you will find as you explore the game. Most of these offer temporary benefits. However, the ones without an effect, these are the ones that are permanent, so you should take them right away. You can see just here there's no explanation of the benefit. If you take it, you get a permanent skill increase, as you can see up here. The temporary skill books do not stack. For example, my survival skill here is 64. I take 4 Lad's Life skill books all at once, but they only raise my survival stats by 10. All that happens now is that the additional skills last 4 times longer. In other words, the durations will stack, but the effects will not. Kneeling makes automatic shooting a lot easier. When you are using a machine gun freehand, meaning not aiming down the sights and not using VATS, then do it while you're kneeling down. It doesn't shake as much, and when it comes to creatures like these, they are literally walking into your field of fire. This makes the whole combat encounter a lot easier. When I first started playing, I didn't know you could line up different shots and reloads in VATS. I used to enter VATS, line up a single shot, confirm and then shoot. However, you are able to enter VATS, select several shots, several targets, and then execute the shots. On a similar note, remember that when you use the Pip-Boy, time freezes. This means you can use healing items even while you are engaged in a vicious battle. To repair persons you can try. Down from the starting area you will find the Mojave Outpost headquarters. It's near the Crescent Canyon. In the office and behind the desk is Major Knight. He's the guy you go to if you want your stuff repaired. If you use his services a lot, he may gather quite a few caps. Some people suggest that you try stealing from him, though it really depends on how you want to play the game, since I always seem to get caught and have to reload. A mid-game repair person can be found here at the 118 trading post. Underneath the bridge is where you'll find the gun seller. On top of the bridge is this booth, where you can have your stuff repaired for a fee, though for some reason I can't repair all of them at this location. Perhaps they don't have the repair tools required to do the job. All skills are recommended. We've all seen those videos online of the ultimate skills and ultimate guides to mastering Fallout Las Vegas. But in my opinion, all the skills are as good as the others and there's no real genuine ultimate guide to playing them. Which skills you pick is dependent on how you want to play the game. In fact, if you have all of the DLC, you can pretty much max out all of the most important skills anyway. If it's been a while since you've played, then here's my opinion on some of the skills. If you want to do your own repairs, then getting your repair skill up to 50 is fine. This allows you to repair and craft almost anything you need. Increasing it past 50 makes you more efficient, but its only real purpose is to add a few story and DLC options that would otherwise be closed off to you. Suffice Suffice it to say, getting your repair skill to 50 is pretty fine, and anything further may be a little unnecessary. A nice stopping point for survival is 55. This allows you to craft most of the food and aid items in the game, and it opens up a few story elements too. It's best to think of survival as more of one of the fun elements of the game, as opposed to what one would call an absolutely necessary element of the game. It's fun grilling up those big hornous steaks, and there are a few things that can help you navigate some of the trickier areas. However, it isn't super necessary to get you through the game. On the other hand, if this is your second playthrough, perhaps level up something such as lockpicking before you start sinking points into survival skills. Technically, lockpicking isn't all that necessary, but it can get frustrating having to leave doors and safes unlocked as you navigate through the game. Energy weapons, explosives, melee weapons, and unarmed. These are your various options for attack. What you level up and by how much is really up to you. It depends on how you want to play the game. Each of these only really has a very moderate effect on story quests, with perhaps the explosives having slightly more skill checks than the rest of them. Contrary to its popular understanding, the barter skill is maybe one of the most passive skills you can pick. This is because its primary aim is only that you need to grind less. My suggestion and my own personal opinion is that you rank it up to 40 at the very most, at least on your first playthrough. However, if you quite rightly want to put your skill points into something else, you should maybe at least level it up to level 30 just so that you can pass some skill checks. You can wear some clothing that gives you as much as a 10-point boost. Plus, there are temporary skill books that you can use just before you take the option to do the skill check. Thanks to these, I can reach the 50 barter skill check with Cass. The mission is called You Can Depend on Me, where you need one of these skill checks to complete part of this mission. Also, I had the roving merchant outfit, and I was rather worried that I couldn't find any more with which I could repair it. But it turns out that you can repair your roving merchant outfit with any of the wasteland outfits that you find. So just be aware of that if you're in a similar situation that I was. My advice would be that you get your barter skill up to perhaps 30 before you start investing skills in something such as sneak. But again, it really depends on how you want to play the game, because the critical bonus you get from sneaking is pretty powerful. My point only being that it's more powerful later in the game, and so sneak is sort of one of those skills that you can wait a little while before you invest in it. The lockpick skill is kind of a tricky one to advise on, because if you are a 100% completionist, or you're simply the sort of person who doesn't like to leave a lock unpicked, then I may suggest that you level up your lockpicking to 100. However, if you're rushing to level up your lockpick to 100, then do consider this. If you level up your lockpicking skill to 50, then there are 97 locks in the game that you can unlock, which includes DLC. This leaves behind only 29 hard and very hard locks. My point being that if you can live with leaving behind 29 unlocked locks, then all you need to do is level up your lockpick to 50. Otherwise, level it up to 75 for hard locks and 100 for very hard locks. When it comes to medicine, science, and speech, the choice is really up to you. These do have quite a few skill checks in the game, to the point where I may suggest that on your second run, if you decide to go for a more passive run, then perhaps max out things such as medicine, science, and speech just to see how the story goes. As for the sneak skill, it's mostly powerful later in the game when you have more powerful weapons. You see, when you sneak, you can steal more easily, but also you can sneak and get critical attacks. The thing is, during the early game, a sneak attack with a very weak weapon is pretty useless. However, later in the game, when you have very powerful weapons, the sneak attack critical can make mincemeat of even some of the most toughest enemies. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you are going to level up your sneak, perhaps consider doing it later in the game. Get up high to avoid enemies. A classic tip is to get up somewhere high and shoot at the enemies before they get wise and run away. Early game, being able to get out of the way of melee-only enemies helps to make the starting areas a lot less punishing. Plus, sometimes you get lucky and the enemy gets caught in a piece of scenery in a manner that allows you to do some damage before it runs away or it jumps up and finds a way to kill you. Fallout New Vegas is becoming an old game at this point, crying out for a remaster if you ask me. Still, thanks to its age, there are ways that you can get the enemies stuck in the environment. Also, if you are up high and out of the way, even flying enemies will sometimes consider you to be untouchable and will even try to flee from you. For example, here, these bugs can fly, but I appear to be too high. In this case, I think they are having a hard time figuring out if they should attack me or my companion NPC who is below me. Early game farming Radscorpion and Cazador Glands. To outwit a single Radscorpion, run backwards and keep circling left or right. It takes some practice, but in theory, you can keep a Radscorpion at bay for as long as you need in order to take it down. Early game, consider farming Radscorpion and Cazadors for both early game experience and for their poison glands. You can sell the poison glands outright because any item crafted with them results in a loss of value. So just for example here, with almost no barter skill, 35 Scorpion glands got me 420 caps. For 15 Cazador poison glands, I got 630 caps. Finding the Great Khan Merchant. Here is Goodsprings where you start, and the merchant is located just up here where this road ends. Just to show you, here I'm going to start at Spring Mountain Ranch State Park, and you walk all the way over here to this house in the distance. The reason I missed it on my first playthrough is because it's all the way down back in this bunker back here. Now, in order to get them to sell you stuff, you have to get them to accept you. This means you're going to have to do a few missions for the Khans. You can now go down here and buy and sell from this merchant, but more importantly, they often have high stocks of ammo, which is great if you're looking to stock up before a big mission. Also, while I'm down here, if you want to steal something and you want to sort of be sure that you're not going to get caught, you can always pick it up and carry it out of the victim's field of view. You will still lose karma, but the victims themselves won't see you steal the item, so you won't lose any reputation with that faction. You pick stuff up with the Z key on the PC, and on console you have to press in the right analog button to pick up stuff and then press it again to let it go. I'm not sure charisma is necessary. The reason charisma is not favoured in Fallout New Vegas is because the number of NPCs you can actually use charisma on is decidedly less than in its highly rated cousin Fallout 4 or even in Fallout Shelter. As a result, charisma is a less desirable skill in this game, especially if you don't have the various expansions and DLC. Plus, in many cases, as you can see here, there are alternatives to speaking and bartering. But what I suppose bothers me most, and perhaps I don't understand this fully, is that charisma doesn't seem to affect speech or bartering skill checks, because I can play and have just 1 point in charisma, and yet I can still rank up my bartering and speech skills to 100 points. I went back and checked to see if charisma unlocked any perks, and it only unlocks 2 perks in the vanilla game. It also only affects 2 quests, so it really doesn't seem worth it. A very early game grinding area. Has it been a while since you leveled up? Do you need a few extra experience points? Here is the starting area. Head on down here to Crescent Canyon. Kill these golden geckos. They give you 25 or 50 experience points. And like a lot of Fallout New Vegas wildlife, they respawn after 3 days of you being away from the area. This means that you can sell whatever they drop, because you can always come back and farm up more if you need it. See, even with a low barter skill, you can still sell the gecko meat, hides and eggs, which is going to help to offset, if not pay for, the bullets that you used to get the job done. If you are just grinding, then spawn in at one entrance, kill the geckos, and then spawn in at the other entrance, and the rest of the geckos will be there. Swap the button for VATS on the PC. If you are playing on the PC, swap the VATS button from the letter V to the spacebar. Believe me, you're going to need to use the VATS button far more times than you're going to need to use the jump. Plus, it doesn't really take very long for you to adjust. Very quickly you'll get used to pressing the V button to jump and pressing the space bar to activate VATS. If you want to know if enemies are lurking nearby, you can always VATS around, by which I mean you press the VATS button and as you can see over there, looks like a mantis is hiding away. On the PC, while in VATS, you press A or D to skip between your VATS targets. On console, you hold the VATS shoulder button and then using your left analog stick you can skip between targets. Change the mouse sensitivity on the PC. I recommend you turn up mouse sensitivity. The default is pretty slow, especially if you consider yourself a bit of a twitch shooter. Plus, you very quickly adjust to the more responsive mouse speeds, so it's not really a big lurch in gameplay experience. Also, be you playing on console or playing on PC, look up the button or control for always run, and then use it. While you're playing, it should be set to auto run all of the time, unless you're sneaking. So find out which button or control it is on your console or on your PC, and then make sure you use it. For those of you who are playing on the PC, don't forget that quick save is F5 and quick load is F9. I make mention of this because trying to save manually on the PC, it takes a lot of time, and then again, loading takes a lot of time, when in many cases the quick load or quick save, it's just a big time saver, or at the very least, it's certainly more convenient. Do consider putting skills to 10. If you feel like doing a min-maxing run with a focus on just shooting, try opting for 10 in perception, 10 in agility, and 10 in luck, putting the rest of the points wherever you like. I put them into strength because it gets kind of annoying having to keep dropping stuff off because I'm over encumbered. You can only go up to 100 for each skill. So if you take a temporary or permanent skill book after reaching 100, it doesn't have any effect, as you can see there. Just to test this again, this is a temporary skill book that should offer me 10 extra for guns, but as you can see, I'm still at 100. Also, yes, if you put your endurance up to level 9, then you can have the maximum number of implants, which is a nice gimmick, but it isn't necessary for a full and satisfying game completion. Maybe it's something you could try on a second playthrough, perhaps if you're feeling, a little more experimental. There is a wait mode. If you need to be somewhere at a certain time of day in order to progress, or maybe you just, don't want to run around in the dark, well, then you can use the wait function. On the PC, the wait function is the letter T. On the PlayStation 3, I believe it was the touchpad, but now on the PlayStation 5, I believe it's mapped to the left side of the touchpad. On Xbox, it should be the back button, or what some people call the select button. To change your companion NPC's outfits, you need to go into their inventory and give them a certain item.
Ooh, got something good for me? Is it a dress?
If the item of clothing has a higher defense rating than what's already being worn, then your companion will put it on. This gives you at least some control over what your companion NPC wears.